Welcome to my Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast with me, Tiffany Jo Baker, where we help you experience God's power and rest in your purpose and progress as you move forward step by step in all the things God has called and created you to do at home and around the world. Hello, y'all, and welcome back to my Full Life and Faith Leaps with me, Tiffany Jo Baker. And today we are going to talk about a topic that I have not addressed before. And my friend Amberly Neese is here to just bring some light into and some revelation on all of the questions that Jesus asked while he was walking on the earth. And Amberly, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Absolutely. I love this podcast, and I'm so excited to play in the sandbox today.
Yay. Well, we love to play. We love to be real and share the goodness of God, the hard places, and just what we as multifaceted women who love Jesus, what we learn in the process. So I'm so excited to just like mine your mind and pull out the nuggets that you found as you've been studying all of the questions that Jesus asked in the Bible. But before we do that, if you don't know Amberly Neese, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a popular speaker. She's is a regular part of 2 national tours. She is a Bible study writer, devotional writer, a comedian. Y'all know I love humor and I love to be funny, and I would love to call myself a comedian, but I cannot do that. But she can, y'all. That is so awesome. She's also a professor, a speaker coach, and just an all-around encourager. And so I'm so excited to talk about her latest book and project, which is Untangling Faith, where she dives into and explores the questions of Jesus. And so we're going to dive in on that topic. And so as I was looking at all of your stuff and your book, it talked about that Jesus in the New Testament asked over 300 questions.
Which sounds like toddlers for those who have small children. That's right. In one afternoon, a child can ask exactly 300 questions. But I think we certainly know that Jesus is the answer, but we often, at least I do, think of the profound things the answers that Jesus gave, when really, when we do a deep dive, there are over 300 questions that he asked, and really only 2 questions that he directly answered. So questioning was a delightful teaching strategy that Jesus employed to get his people thinking and to get the religious leaders thinking. And I think it's so underutilized in the church. I think many of us were sold the bill of goods that no, good Christian girls don't ask questions. When I'm like, you know what, if I want to be like Jesus, he asks questions. So sign me up for that. And so I was so excited to do this particular project.
That is so fascinating that he only fully answered 2 of the questions that he asked.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I can giggle about this now, but when my kids were little, I'm going back to this, but the kids would say, "I'm hungry." And I would say, "Have I ever starved you? Have you ever gone without food?" And it was my kind of maybe polite way of saying, "You're driving me crazy, but I just want you to think this through." And on a much more grand and much more loving and much more patient level, God continues to do that. So I have a ton of friends who are deconstructing their faith, people I'm crazy about, and that's super hard. And I know that I'm one of those people that wanted to have tools to kind of equip myself with. And instead of memorizing 894 verses that I could, throw at them at various times, the word is good and it will not return void. I actually found great hope in the fact that Jesus asked these incredible questions and invited people into a journey of reconstructing their faith. And so that's how this whole study was born. And I went to Bible college. I have a master's degree from Bible college. This was, I mean, talk about like mining my brain. I don't know how much I have left because so much of it was investing in diving into these questions. So I'm thrilled that I hopefully can hand some of these great tools so that the people who are listening have some arrows in their quiver to really get to the heart of what people are needing these days.
That's so good. I was thinking about what would Jesus, the intent of Jesus for asking all these questions, and as we live today, like what are the purpose of questions and how do we use them? And you mentioned, good girls don't question, and some of us have been raised in families where it's like, don't question me, but yet Jesus came as like the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, like the highest ruler, reign, and fully God, fully man, and he was all about questions.
Yeah,
And
I love it. I super love it.
And you mentioned bringing people into this learning space and this growing space, and what he did with those questions. I think he's a genius.
Absolutely.
A genius.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, master teacher, master thinker, and a safe place for people to process.
Yes.
And when I did my first Bible study, I figured out, like, in my research, I found out that the word hospital comes like not from like people getting well, but actually safe places, these places that Christians would set up in the most dangerous of places on the journey. So they would kind of set up these like safe houses that Christians could go to when they just were struggling. And maybe they got medical care, maybe they got some soup, but mostly they just got a safe place to kind of regroup. And that's where that same word is where we get hospitality. And so sometimes, even if you're not opening your home, even if you're just opening your heart and your time and your schedule, and you're saying to a friend, man, I know this is a rough journey. I want to be a safe place for you. And I'd love to, kind of unpack some of these questions with you.
And that's so freeing that we don't have to have all the answers.
No.
And I love it. I was with a group of friends this weekend at a writers conference, and one of them, when we would ask her a question, she would respond, "This is where I'm at today." And I thought, what a powerful way to answer a question, because we're all in growth. We answer and are based on what we know today and what we have. And
I love that.
God willing, next year my answer will be different.
Right. Absolutely. Because he who began a good work in us is going to be faithful to complete it. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I may steal that in the name of the Lord Jesus. That's mine.
Because I stole it myself too. I just put it on the podcast.
I love it. I love it.
Good. This is where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I would love to know, what are a couple of your favorite questions that Jesus asked, and why would they be your favorite?
That's so great. And this is where I am today. These are the ones that are popping up today. One is in 2 of the Gospels, when Jesus is talking to the demon-possessed pigs. I know you're like, wow, Amberly, thanks for starting us off with a little scam. Yeah, exactly. But he asked, "What is your name?" Jesus asked the demon, "What is your name?" And I do believe that is such a powerful question to the pigs, but also I'm obviously to the demons and the pigs, but to you and to me, what is your name? I mean, obviously I've named Amberly. Tiffany Joe, awesome name. I super love it. It sounds like it should be a lead character on a book. Amberly sounds like something you would take medication for, just get a little cream and it'll clear up in days, but that's not what I'm talking about. He says, "What is your name?" Meaning, who are you? Whose are you? And I think oftentimes when my spiritual front end alignment is wonky, it is because I forget who I am. Not like I'm 53, so sometimes I do forget who I am. That's a totally different thing. But I mean, like, kind of this spiritual amnesia of, I'm a child of God, and therefore should act accordingly. I am loved by God and therefore should love others accordingly. I was served by the greatest of all when he died on the cross for me, and I should serve likewise. And so when he says, "What is your name?" it kind of cleans my clock. Who are you, right? And I also love that he asks his disciples, Peter especially, "Well, who do you say that I am?" Because that's another thing. We've all read that story 1,000 times. We've even heard it in baptisms, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." But I think it's such an encouragement that it's such a personal invitation for us to not only know God personally, but also to to be able to just like in the process we were talking about earlier, to really dive into what that looks like. Because in some seasons, man, when we were struggling with infertility, I was appealing to Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. Mostly we think of that when it's like, I want a house, or I want a car, or I want a boyfriend, or whatever the thing is. But for me, it was, we wanted a child. And he would say to me, Amberly, well, who do you say that I am? Don't I, just like the thing I said with my kids, have I ever let you start? No. Don't you know who I am? Who do you say that I am? So, whether it was infertility or the loss of my father or a job loss or whatever, when tough stuff comes, we can put on our cute little Christian face and say, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, but do you believe it when this stuff gets tough? And that's another one. So I'm sharing both my favorite and the hardest for me. Like they are jagged pills for me to swallow, and yet so good to think through.
Well, I think those are like the core. If we know who we are and we know who he is,
right?
There's that kind of, I think that solves almost everything. We can weather the storm. We can make the right decisions, the best decisions.
Yes.
We can get up in the morning and get out of bed when it's hard.
Yeah.
We can lay things at his feet because we trust him.
Right.
We can make healthy decisions for ourselves because we know whose we are. So if we can answer those two questions, the others will just kind of fall in place.
I 100% agree with you. But here's what's amazing. There are 298 more questions that Jesus asked that are equally compelling for us to figure out the tough stuff of life, to navigate the tumult and the crazy and the chaos. But how loving that he would not slam the answer on us, but allow us gently to woo us to discover the answers for ourselves. And so I don't hear, well, who do you say that I am?
Yeah.
No, I hear, oh, sweet child.
Yes.
You've heard what others have said. Now I want to know this personal invitation. And so I think you're right. I think if we embrace who God is and who we are in him, woo, there's a whole bunch of choices I would make different. I would differently. I would probably stop living like a child of hometown buffet and live like a child of God, right? And feast on his word, right? And so I think that's true. And I so appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm reminded of, there's been times, and our girls are just about to be 18 and 20. And there's been times in our parenting that our question would be, our response would be, because we're bakers, my last name is Baker.
Yeah.
And bakers do this, or bakers do that. And in Jesus' question of who do you say that I am, he's bringing that kingdom family into it. Absolutely. That you are a child of God. And so because of that, all of this that I have for you.
Yeah.
All of that. I mean, it's just so all-encompassing.
And it's so good. I so love that. Yeah. So our pastor and neighbor, when we were in California, used to say every day they'd send their kids out with, you guys are kolas. You know what that means. Now go and do that. And I thought that was so brilliant, because they had talked through what that meant to
the core values
of the family, the core values of the family. They'd watched mom and dad model what that looked like. And I think that's fantastic. Some of us didn't have that model. And so we're still having to navigate. And that's, that's where I'm at. And that's exciting. That's a good place to be at all these years of faith. And it's like brand new material. It's so cool how the Holy Spirit can do that.
It is. And this is where the Baker family is today.
Yeah.
This is where we are today.
Yes, that's where the Baker family is today. By the way, I'm going to ask, I know you're supposed to do the interview. However, I have found that even though my kids are doing well, they're not off the rails of the crazy train or anything, that this time of parenting, so our daughter turned 22 yesterday and our son is 19. I think this has been the hardest season of parenting ever. I think it was easier than when I had no sleep and I was wiping their behinds 900 times a day, because at least I felt like I had some modicum of control.
Yes.
But that train them up in the way they should go, man, that go verb is legit right now in this season. Are you feeling the
Yeah.
same
Oh,
thing?
100%. I mean, because we're at, 16, 15 on, it's like your decisions are life decisions.
Yeah.
They're not just momentary, like it's life decisions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
big, yeah. Oh, big deal, big
It's
stuff.
not a, it's not just a, do you want the chicken nuggets or the Southwest salad from Chick-fil-A? It's
Yes.
going places you may meet your future
Yes.
spouse, or, pursuing a career that might, really God may use to bring people to himself. I mean, they're huge, huge things. So I'm
Things.
with you, sister. I've actually thought about writing that book because I just have a lot of moms in my life that are like, man, this is talk about a hospital. We need a place where we can all get together and say, this is hard. This is really hard.
100%. Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
Well, I kind of want to just end this time. I know it's gone by so fast, but just talking a little bit about Untangling Faith, your book that explores the questions Jesus asked. What does it mean to untangle faith, and the purpose of the study that you did?
Yeah. So first of all, Untangling Faith, that title actually came from our friend Kathy Lip. I was talking things through with her. Actually, the story, I'll make it super quick, but the story was the Lord kept compelling me to write this book. And I was literally like, I have no publisher. I mean, the publisher I was working with had kind of turned down the lights on the company. I had no publisher. Every turn that I talked to people who are literary agents, and they kept saying to me, your stuff is great. I think this is a message that needs to get out there. You're just not enough. I mean, that's not really what they said, but that's what I heard. Your numbers are not enough. Your followers are not enough. You don't sell enough books. Now, mind you, all my books had come out during COVID. So I felt like I was rocking it because I sold more than just to my mother and my Aunt Jolynn. I mean, this was a big deal. But I just kept hearing the not enoughs. And so when the Lord kept, pushing me to write this book, I remember saying to him, like, there are no clouds in the sky. Why are you asking me to build the ark? Like, that's what it felt like to me. It felt like so foolish. I finally acquiesced, and I wish I could say I did it like lovingly and gracefully, like, oh my gosh, I love God and I'm going to do whatever he says. But instead I was like, okay, God, fine. I was like a 7th grade girl. I'm fine. Okay, I will do it under duress. And I started the process, worked with a pilot group, and I just kept sending them a chapter and they would send me feedback. I was 2 weeks between chapters. I get to chapter 5. I'm about halfway through chapter 5 and it's cleaning my clock. As I do this, I'm thinking, if this never goes anywhere, if it's only for me, Lord, thank you. It was worth it. This is so good. And I get a call from my publisher and they're turning the lights back on and they wanted to know if I was working on something. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so that's how it happened. It was actually the untangling of my own faith. I mean, yes, I've been a Christian a long time. I tell people, thousands of people every year about Jesus. And yet I was having my own faith crisis. Like, are you good? Are you God? Do you work all things for good? And so working through that process, it's a 6-week study. And every week tackles like one of the big faith questions, the character of God and what our purpose is, all those kind of things, those big honking faith questions that probably all of us have posed before, but also those of us in Christ for a while have also helped other people kind of navigate those waters. And so each of the weeks is that, and every day is a different question that Jesus asked in the New Testament that pertains to that particular big question. And so, yes, there are personal stories for me. Yes, some of them are dorky. Actually, most of them are dorky because I wrote them. They're dorky. I mean, I share my heart and I share my dorkiness. But the beautiful thing is that in all of it, I get to, on a very small level, kind of Sherpa people through a journey that the Lord took me through himself. And so I am stoked about it. It comes out April 18th. I'm doing a Bible study. If anybody pre-orders and sends me their receipt to Amberly Neese booking.com, I am, I'm sorry, Amberly Neese booking at gmail.com. That's see again. There it is. Then they're a part of my online Bible study. I'm doing a free online Bible study for everybody who pre-orders, but mostly I'm just excited to dive into it again. Not because I wrote it, but because it was so of the Lord, I can't even see straight.
Well, and the way he does it is that same question at a different time is going to bring different revelation. And
so, do you want to get well is a question today that cleans my clock, that cleaned my clock yesterday. I mean, they're just rich, delightful questions. Jesus is so
Oh my
He's so
goodness. Do you want to get well? That could go a million ways.
I know it. Tell me. But today, today, where I'm at today is, yeah, exactly. I love it.
So good. All right. So I know people are going to want to find you and find out more about what you're doing, where you're at, where you're speaking. What's the best way to find you online?
They can go to amberlyneese.com. That is, I didn't pull a muscle on the creativity on that one, but it's amberlyneese.com, and they can make connections. Also, Amazon, Cokesbury, christianbook.com, Barnes and Noble, they can certainly get to the book. But I'd also love to hear their stories. If they choose to do a study with some friends, hey, email me and I'd love to zoom in and say hello. I'd love to high five in Jesus' name. Anybody who's doing that. But also just to stay, I do a monthly newsletter. I do all that kind of stuff. But mostly I just want to serve them well. So if there's a way that I can serve them well, a prayer that I can offer up for them, or an insight, I'd love to be able to help with that for sure.
So good. So good. Amberly, thank you so much for jumping on here and just talking with us.
Why don't you live closer? That's what I want to know. It's my one question. Come on.
Well, and you're in Arizona with all of my cacti.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. We came once for spring break and did the desert garden.
Oh yeah, the desert botanical garden. Come on. Amazing. Yes.
I was like, take my picture here. Take my picture here.
Okay, so recently, because where I live is up in the mountains, and there was a tourist that came by, and I was sitting at a coffee shop with a friend, and I could tell she was by herself, and I just said, I said hello, and she said, I have a question for you. Do you guys live around here? So he said, yeah. And she says, man, I don't get all this cactus thing. Like, it's just, they're so ugly. They're so whatever. And I said, I can see that if you compare it to, this, a blooming whatever, I can see that. But here's the deal. Every single one of them is a story of survival. And so all you do is look at them and say, this had the resilience to weather extremes and come out beautiful. I'm like, sign me up for that. May the same be said about me someday, that man, she by the grace of God, she weathered the storms and she bloomed anyway. Yes.
That's right. Yes. I have a message about cactus that God gave me all these downloads about it, because every cactus is able to bloom, but it has to be under the right conditions. So we could
that whole thing, like Psalm 1, it bears its fruit in season. That's the deal, right? In season, it does the blooming.
But you have to be under the right conditions. So not everyone will, unless they are under the right conditions. So.
Well, I did grow up in Arizona for the most part, so I do know how to survive using cacti. Just so you know, Tiffany Joe, if you ever want to call your friend Amberly, I would love to unpack that with you, because I have so much useless information.
I love that. I love that. I had my first cactus fries when I was in Arizona.
Oh yeah, good stuff, right? Good stuff.
It's like a prickly pear sauce. It was great.
Tell me.
Well, thank you, Amberly, so much for joining us. And y'all, thank you for listening here at My Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast. And we'll see y'all next time. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today on My Full Life and Faith Leaps podcast. If you enjoyed our time together and are taking away a nugget that has inspired your soul and success, would you share this episode with a loved one who could use it too? And if you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review this podcast and help me help others fuel and fulfill their faith journeys. Until next time, I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, a 3-time surrogate, speaker, and strategizer who loves to help you birth your God-given dreams at home and around the world. Now go do all the things God has called and created you to do with the grace and gifts God has given you.